Good evening. Thank you very much for tuning in for the County of Ventura's meeting today. So with that, I will call us to order and let's do our pledge of allegiance. Mr. Chair Tremblay, would you? Thank you.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, thank you for doing the pledge. And if we can have a roll call, please.
Good evening, authorities. For Camarillo Authority, Chair Kelly Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Here.
Vice Chair Tony Tremblay. Council Member Susan Santangelo.
Here.
And Public Member Scott Bear. Thank you. We have a quorum for Camarillo. And for Oxnard Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long.
Here.
Chair Vianney Lopez.
Here.
Council Member Bert Perallo.
Here.
Vice Chair Gabe Teran.
Here.
And Public Member Barbara Filkins.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum for Oxnard.
Wonderful. Next, if we can get the approval for the minutes for September 5th, 2024. So for the Camarillo Airport, can I get a motion? It's been first and second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Any noes or abstentions? Motion is approved.
All right, for Oxnard, do we have any questions or comments on the minutes of September 5th, 2024? If not, I'll welcome a motion.
All motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or any abstention? All right.
Perfect. Next is our public comments. Do we have any public comments online or in person?
We do not have any public comments at this time, but I will read out the script for our public comment, or excuse me, for our online and in-person attendees. To members of the public who wish to address the commission and excuse me, the authorities tonight with live public comments on any agenda item, please visit vcairports.org/meeting-calendar for participation instructions, streaming links, meeting IDs, and passcodes. In-person speakers present will be called upon first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will be called to speak after the agenda item is presented. For in-person public comment, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the secretary before the end of the public comment period. For our remote participants via Zoom or telephone, please accept the prompt to be promoted to speaker and unmute your mic when it is your turn to speak. Members of the public are allotted 3 minutes per item or a cumulative total of 5 minutes for multiple items at a single meeting, unless the time allotment is increased or decreased by the chair depending on the number of speakers. Please use your allotted time accordingly. And again, for the record, Chair Long, we do not have any public comments at this time.
Wonderful. And there's no consent items?
This evening for the consent agenda, we have items 6A through 6B for Camarillo Airport Authority. For Oxnard Airport Authority, we have none. And for Camarillo and Oxnard Airport Authority jointly, we have 6C and 6D. And we do not have any public comments for the consent agenda. So we can take your motion in second for Camarillo Airport Authority whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just missing some of the agenda. Yes. Thank you. In a second, please.
I'll second.
Okay, and we have an abstention on one of these items.
Which item?
I'll be abstaining on 6A, the Camarillo Air Force lease. I was involved in helping get the lease finalized and feel it's the right thing to do not to vote. Although I think it's a great lease.
And your vote on all the rest.
I'm fine with the rest of that lease, that item. You know, abstain.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And we've heard the abstention on the one with the aye on the rest.
Thank you. The motions all pass unanimously with the exception of the abstention by Public Member Scott Bear on item 6A.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, then we have none for Oxnard Airport Authority, and we'll take another vote for 6C through 6D for Camarillo and Oxnard whenever you're ready.
All right, so for the consent agenda items that include both Camarillo and Oxnard Airport Authority, do we have a motion or any questions or comments on any of the items under the consent?
If there are no questions, I'll move the acceptance of the consent items.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or any abstentions? Okay.
Okay, next item is 7A. Receive and file a monthly staff update for communications and engagement.
Sorry about that. All right. Good evening to you all. I'm Jeanette Haregi, Communications and Engagement Manager and Public Information Officer for the Ventura County Department of Airports. I'm pleased to be here this evening to present our 11th feature in our series of stories that put a spotlight on local aviation. These stories highlight the many unknowns of the airports, the behind-the-scenes work made possible by the day-to-day operations of Camarillo Airport and Oxnard Airport, work that makes a profound impact on the communities we serve. Because of the timeliness of the mountain fire, our story this evening will shift to the efforts of the Ventura County Fire Department and particularly the aerial defense operations that continue to combat hotspots and more 1 week after the fire began. The morning of Wednesday, November 6th, found most of us in our normal weekday routines. Kids were in school, their parents were at the office. Some were simply enjoying a morning inside their home to escape the high winds and the red flag warnings that the National Weather Service labeled as a particularly dangerous situation. No one who lived through the Thomas Fire in 2017 was ignorant to the damage those winds could cause. Still, we carried on with our mornings. After all, there were meetings to attend, errands to run, and to-do lists to tackle. It's safe to say that when news spread that a fire broke out on the mountainside in Somis that morning, we all held our breath. And though many of us experienced firsthand how quickly the Thomas Fire ravaged through communities, there was no way we could have been fully prepared for the minutes, hours, and days ahead. Trying to capture the devastation so many Ventura County residents experienced from what became the mountain fire and the impact that devastation has had and will continue to have is nearly impossible. In the middle of that devastation are the footprints of the first responders who worked in some of the worst possible conditions to save lives and save homes that the fire had yet to reach. And on the hillsides covered with burn scars are the remnants of the Phos-Chek drops by aerial defense operations that flew almost around the clock until containment of the fire was under control. Based at Camarillo Airport since 1971, the Ventura County Aviation Unit was literally in the backyard of the mountain fire. High winds made it difficult for aerial defense operations, but the unit was still able to complete water drops, essentially flying through the entire first night to battle the flames. Eventually joined by countless additional resources, including CAL FIRE, Colson, and Santa Barbara, Montecito, Glendale, Orange County, and Burbank fire departments, containment of the fire, which burned nearly 21,000 acres, went from 0% Thursday to 26% Sunday. 17 aircraft were on hand at Camarillo Airport at the peak of the fire, with aerial defense depending solely on helicopters. Conditions were simply too unsafe for fixed-wing aircraft to fly. More than 2,200 emergency response personnel were both on the ground and in the air. The Ventura County Aviation Unit alone performed 300 water drops, which equates to 200,000 gallons of water. The high frequency of the drops and the quick turnaround time of each aircraft between drops was made possible by the close proximity of Camarillo Airport, which closed for the incident to become a full-fledged aerial defense response base for 5 days. Having Camarillo Airport as a resource is a game changer, according to Ventura County Fire Battalion Chief Nick Cleary, who served as operations chief for the mountain fire. He added that the logistics of having to move aircraft to a different, more distant airport to refuel, repilot, and maintain aircraft would have resulted in a significant loss of time. Camarillo Airport has been a fantastic resource, said Ventura County Sheriff Sergeant Kelly Rourke. Quick turnaround for aircraft involved in firefighting is critical for public safety. Having a safe and secure location for personnel assigned to those aircraft is also very important. While the wildfires in Ventura County have made headlines nationally, it's really the community's response that is the story. The calls to action that are answered without hesitation, the doors left open for those who lost their home, the shelters that became available for animals, the clothing and food donations, the hand-drawn thank you notes to firefighters from the child whose house was saved, and the simple act of a hug when you aren't even sure yet of what it is you need. Many of those stories will remain unknown. What we do know is that amid the uncertainty of a wildfire in Ventura County lies the certainty that a team of highly trained first responders is nearby to provide the sense of relief we all felt that first night of the mountain fire as we watched rig after rig drive toward the fire and heard the continuous hum of helicopter after helicopter providing aerial support. In the end, those affected most are neighbors, family members, colleagues, and friends. And they are also the first responders who are on the rigs or who are flying to stop a fire that robbed them of their own home. The Department of Airports is a proud partner of the Ventura County Fire Department, Ventura County Sheriff's Office, and their collaborative effort to make it possible to have a locally based aviation unit. To learn more about the Ventura County Aviation Unit, visit venturasheriff.org. Thank you all. The pictures here that I'd like to highlight most are the two thank you notes hand-drawn and written by a young girl who's pictured in the middle with the two no, those are ops guys, whose house was saved in Santa Paula on South Mountain. Thank you all.
Thank you. That was a very nice dedication. We've had a lot going on the last 8 days and just appreciate the community coming together. No one probably knows, but we had Prince Harry at the airport. I was with him. He was meeting the pilots and giving his thanks along with going on a tour. But just accolades to the whole airport and all the staff for helping our sheriffs and our fire to ensure that they get their job done. I really appreciate staff's involvement in that. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Long. And for the record, we have no public comment on the item.
Here, any other board members want to make any comments? Please go right ahead. Susan?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the airport on behalf of the community for opening itself up and being available and morphing into what it needed to be to help serve that fire. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
A couple of things. I wanted to echo Councilmember Santangelo's comment. I think that the airport staff led by Director Freitas and Mayfi did an incredible job to keep the airport efficient, available. For those of us who live in the Heights, we're very grateful. I was, as I was leaving, I could see the yellow and blue helicopters streaming towards our community to drop water. And I was reminded of the old cliche that as we're running out, they're running in. And I'm a little tired right now and unable to adequately express my gratitude, but my gratitude to Department of Airports, first responders, and as a helicopter pilot myself, to the brave men and women who are flying those water dropping helicopters for the county and our contract agencies. I just don't have words. So thank you all.
And I would like to echo a little bit.
But on that last shopping one, on Thursday, was a very long day. It was very fucking popular.
Okay. Go ahead. John, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've been speaking pretty extensively publicly about a couple of things to just reflect on. Number one, certainly a thank you to all of our first responders, and how heartbroken we all are for those folks who have had their homes and their properties destroyed or damaged. great kudos to the airport staff. I'll echo exactly what the colleagues have said. We appreciate the airport. We appreciate their efforts so much. The efforts of the county staff, together with the city staff, together with the first responders, together with all of our community nonprofit members, show what kind of a community we have here and how important this airport is to our community. Sometimes people, I think, tend to pigeonhole airports either from, gosh, is there an issue from an operations standpoint, or what's the value of the airport to the local economy? And I don't mean pigeonhole in a disrespectful way. There's different prisms, different angles you can take at it. But last week showed the value of this airport together with an incredible value of this airport in a very tangible, demonstrative way. And together with the exemplary efforts of county staff, our airport staff, I really want to thank you. So that's it from me. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, on the Camarillo, the village again, we had another, the office
Thank you. Commissioner Pearl.
I would just like to say that this event, I live in Oxnard. This event brought requests for donations of stuff. And when the donations were requested, shortly after that, we find out they're overwhelmed with the donations. It speaks to the quality of people who live in our community that they donate and help at a time like this. That's a big deal.
Thank you. Commissioner Trump.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just also want to echo what my colleagues here have said in just a heartfelt thanks to all of our first responders. Certainly, we had our county fire make a valiant effort and call in additional resources, knowing what was going to be needed when that time was right. And I know in City of Oxnard, our fire chief at one point had updated us that we had a number, about 40 personnel there helping. But seeing, I do have a family member who's directly affected, and seeing photos of Culver City Fire and Orange County Fire Departments, just everybody coming in to help our community, is just a reminder of the human spirit and how we can all pitch in to help others. And thank you for this update, because as was mentioned, the airports and their proximity and the ability to have our aircraft that were helping with this effort be readily available and ready to go, I think has made all the difference for many folks in this. And so I just want to give my thanks to everyone who had a part in this, no matter how small or how big. But certainly our first responders have saved many structures and many families, and also were able to do what they could for others. And now as a community, we're going to move forward to help those who are needing it in the next steps. So thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a receive and file, so there's no vote needed. The next item we're going to do is the receive and file the staff report regarding the annual wings over the Camarillo Air Show.
So this is an item that we do kind of every year. Just an update from the 2024 Wings Over Camarillo event here at Air Show at Camarillo. And we invited Honorable Mr. Bill Thomas to come and give a quick update.
You need to give me a little sign if he's getting his hook out, because he's a hard taskmaster on timing.
Yeah, you need a timer?
We did have an air show. It's hard to imagine that it was that long ago and so many things have happened in between. But it was a good event. I bank my success on, did I hurt any airplanes or hurt any people? And so far I've heard none on either of those cases. So just a quick reminder, Camarillo Wings Association is the sponsor for the air show. We put it on after the EAA stopped supporting local air shows except for Oshkosh. So it's been a nonprofit since 2010. In that time frame, we became a 501c3, and the total mission for the Camarillo Wings Association is to put on an air show. And as a side benefit, all of the things that come with it as far as education and encouraging aviation to our community and to our younger folks. We also require a lot of people to put on the air show besides just the group of us that sort of do it most of the year. So out of that whole group, we've donated now 701,000 since 2010 to the nonprofit 501(c)s that support us during the air show. Our theme this year was saluting test pilots, and there are the 4 grand marshals that we had. In the upper one closest to you on the top is Tom Morgenfeld, who's local. He has his airplane here at a hangar, and he had first flight in the F-35 that makes so much noise at Magoo to keep you guys on your toes. Kurt Schroeder's the other one on the top. He was a Grumman and a Northrop Grumman test pilot, F-14 a lot. And the lower one, a local guy, is Kevin Gross. He works out at Point Magoo now, but he was the chief test pilot to get the Osprey back into operation after it was grounded in 2002 and 2003. And then Roy Martin from Northrop Grumman that he did the original stuff on the sonic boom tests that now Boeing is working on how to do sonic booms in airplanes that don't come down to the ground and boom you. So the key is to still have an air show that's exciting. And I know that fire knot is not necessarily the key thing for this week, but I had this already done before we had the fire. Our big area that we try to emphasize, and we've started this probably before most of the other air shows, have been the STEM pavilion. It's gone from a little part of the hangar at CAF to the whole new west hangar, and it's bursting at the seams for anybody that was at the show and had a chance to see it. Kids were just having a great time. One of the complaints I had from my next door neighbor was, you got to put some bleachers out in front of the hangar or the STEM so the kids can play in the hangar and we can watch the air show, because they were not wanting to leave. And then on the bottom corner is Pearl Ward with the microjet that we had in the STEM pavilion, and it was part of the grant that City of Camarillo helped us pay for. So thank you, City of Camarillo. Static displays, starting out with the Civil Air Patrol, Honor Guard, and flag bearers. And then the C-130, which is the MAFS airplane that wasn't used in the mountain fire, but they were ready. They just never got called. There were so many other assets that they weren't needed. E2 guys just came off of deployment. They were in on the Theodore Roosevelt in the Red Sea, and had just come back like 2 weeks before the air show and came out to do static display. So that shows the interest that the Navy has in community. Veterans Hangar was also, it's sad. I look around, and for a long time, veterans were all these old guys, and suddenly I are one. So we still have 1 or 2 of the World War II veterans that have been able to make it to our Veterans Hangar. On the demographics and numbers, we had about 16,000 people in attendance for the 2 days. So it was down a little bit from from our highest one, which was pretty close to 20, but that was right after COVID, and it may have been a unique one. Car show was about the same. We shoot for somewhere between 150 and 200 cars, and we had that. We had over 700 volunteers. And like I said, it takes a lot of folks to put together and be able to service that many people. That 700 is not part of the 16,000. Vendors, 90 vendors, and there's another number, the number of children or people paying tickets and volunteers under 18 was 6,000. So if you look at the total number, you know, not quite half, but almost half were kids under 18. Takes a lot to run the air show, so our expenses were somewhere just a little bit short of 600,000, and our profits were just a little bit over 600,000. We're still sorting that out. We were hoping to get a bigger, cleaner break, and so I'm just giving these as rough numbers. As we look at what draws people to air shows, it still comes down to they want to see jets, they want to see loud airplanes, fast airplanes, and warbirds. But surprisingly, well, it's not really surprisingly, but we get almost 50% of the people that came to the show this time were first timers, which was a little, to me, a little surprising given the fact that it's been gone this long. And then quite a few say that they want to either will be or probably will be back. So next year, 16, 17 August, our biggest challenge, and I'll tell you right now, it's going to be parking. We have probably a requirement for 5,000 to 6,000 cars a day to be able to park. And if we can't do it on the field, we're going to have to figure out with the help of the city where we can park off site, and the logistics of getting that many people in and out in a reasonable time is a challenge, and we don't have the answer. We're pursuing that, but I no answer yet. Any questions? Bert.
I appreciate the presentation. Tremendous what you guys are doing. Tremendous that you're able to generate funds and go into the process. What are the three top expenses that you have out of almost $600,000?
Facilities like tents and all of the, I think of the tents and chairs and tables and a lot of that kind of stuff was a real high one. I usually have the highest bill for I handle the airplanes, the rental cars and the hotels. And my tallies usually come in somewhere around 150, 160,000. Because even like the CAF, they always support us, but I can't ask them to fly for free because those airplanes take a lot to maintain. So we pay the lowest cost for our CAF guys, but the folks coming from Chino or from Palm Springs are all expensive, and they haven't gotten cheaper.
Appreciate that explanation. Thank you. Because nothing's free, but I just was curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I just understand how much it takes to get this going and how successful it is. It's just great. So I just really appreciate for you, your efforts, all your team with the nonprofit, all those that are supporting you. I mean, it was fabulous. And it always is year after year, and just really appreciate it. I'm really glad we were able to get the parking figured out. So you could have 16,000 people showing. I know you were worried about the number because of the parking, and I'm really glad that that was able to get figured out. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's important to, I missed it in the first slide because I got off it too quickly, but the four organizations that play the key role in it besides the Camarillo Wings Association, the CAF, EAA, the 99s, and the Department of Airports. And and almost as big as Ventura County Fire and Sheriff, because we can't do it without the support that they provide. So I was looking at my notes 7 years ago, almost to the Thomas Fire was December of 2017. And 7 years later was the Mountain Fire. One of the things that we're thinking about, nothing is firm yet, because it's just sort of my idea, but last time for 2018, our theme was honoring the firefighters. And it was brought to my attention that there were a lot more people working than just the firefighters. And so we're looking at maybe first responders as a way of doing it, and maybe being able to pull in the unified command kind of concept for Grand Marshal. So just give me your thoughts as we go along if you think something like that is a good idea.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Does it receive and file? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Long. And for the record, we have no public comment on the item.
Beautiful. Next up, we have a receive and file staff report on outlining the skydiving operations test and potential future operations at the Oxnard Airport. So I'll hand this over.
So I will quickly open our Deputy Director of Operations Maintenance, Casey Pullman, will give a detailed report, but some background. We were approached about a year and a half ago. We have a skydiving company that operates out of Camarillo Airport and then has a landing zone in Somas off airport, and was looking to relocate the landing zone to one of our two airports. So Casey's going to go into a detail. Putting a landing zone on an airport does cause some hesitation, I'll say, with pilots and air traffic control folks. But I want to be clear, much like you've heard us over the years, when our neighbors asked to not allow jet airplanes to operate at certain times, those kind of, we can't say no to that, because through grant assurances and FAA, skydiving happens to be a recognized aeronautical use. So Casey will go through the process we're going through. I want to thank in advance for Barb Filkin, who kind of has helped us, and Casey will talk about that first kickoff meeting we've had with our stakeholders today.
Just one question before you go. Currently, there's a skydiving company that runs and drops off right off Lewis Road. Do you know where they're flying out of?
I believe that's a company that's based out of here that drops offsite on the land. So I believe it's the same company.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Freitas, are these static lines? Are these free falls? Are these
So this company
Top load
specifically
jumps?
is tandem jump. So it's highly skilled, paired up with a non-skydiver jumping, usually one or two at a time maximum. So
Go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, Casey Pullman, Deputy Director of Airports. As the director stated, over the past year, the airports have reviewed a request from iSkydive. Formerly, they're known as Skydive Coastal, to establish a landing zone at Oxnard Airport. iSkydive maintains a small operation at Camarillo, where its current landing zone is situated in Moore Park, about 50 miles away from Camarillo Airport. This request would introduce a new aeronautical activity to Oxnard Airport. Following extensive discussions and review with the FAA, it has been determined that FAA Grant Assurance 22 requires Oxnard Airport to make its facilities available for aeronautical activities, including skydiving. This insurance mandates that the airports provide reasonable access to aeronautical operations in a non-discriminatory manner. To evaluate the feasibility and safety of establishing a landing zone at Oxnard for iSkydive, we have agreed to conduct a trial period. The trial, expected to commence in late November or sometime in December, will allow the airports, along with the FAA and other relevant stakeholders, to assess operational, logistical, and safety requirements. The trial will be structured to monitor iSkydive's landing activities and gather data to help define best practices and ensure the safest procedures possible for both skydiving and other airport operations. To facilitate transparent communication and address any questions or concerns, we have conducted a stakeholder meeting today, and which included Barbara was in attendance to that. This meeting was attended by other major Oxnard stakeholders, including representatives from Oxnard Control Tower, as well as additional airport partners. The purpose of this meeting was to provide stakeholders with an opportunity to discuss the proposed skydiving operations with the iSkydive team directly and to ask questions. This initiative represents a proactive effort to support new aeronautical activities at Oxnard in compliance with FAA guidelines. While there's no board action required at this time, we will continue to monitor and assess the operational impacts throughout the trial period. We will follow up in future meetings and inform you of the significant findings and developments related to this operation. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions or comments? Councilmember Tehran.
Thank you. Do we have any kind of initial summary of the conversation that happened at today's stakeholder meeting? Just a general sense, or do you want more time to kind of analyze comments, and will that be brought back to us later?
We discovered a few things today, and really it was just that that transparency of the iSkydive CEO to just answer any questions that or concerns that the Oxnard stakeholders might have. Mr. Luther Kurtz, he gave a summary of what he was anticipating on doing, and obviously we wanted their traffic control tower to be involved in that discussion. And so I think that was kind of the most important discussion that needed to be had. Although everybody else did contribute quite a bit. But I think that at the end of the day, we did take a tour of the airport to look at potential landing zones. And there was a particular area that both air traffic control tower as well as iSkydive was thought that was the best area to conduct these operations, this landing zone.
Okay, is there, thank you for that. And I'm glad that the initial conversations were able to happen at the stakeholder meeting. Is there some regulatory reason that it would be on site, or is that a preference of the operator? Or I have little context or level of knowledge on this. So I know Mr. Freitas mentioned earlier they used to land offsite in Somis, I think you had mentioned, and they were looking to look at one of the on-site areas for the airports. But I'm just wondering if there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and he opened up the meeting with it's an operational thing, offsite transport to and from offsite location, as opposed to having your departure, your pickup, your landing all in one location is a more efficient operation for them. But I do want to be clear that, we have to allow this process to be evaluated. If it is not a safe operation, we would not support it. The air traffic tower manager has been very clear he would not support. So, that's why we're taking our time to go through this process, evaluate it, get the input. We may even do a test at Camarillo if that's appropriate. So those are all things we'll look at as we go through this process.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Supervisor Long, and then Councilmember Perrello. Councilmember Perrello?
Thank you for the report. I appreciate that you're bringing this up front. Three questions. On the top line of the plan for the trial, it says evaluate the feasibility and safety for establishing a loading zone at Oxnard for skydive coastal. This landing zone would be only for this particular company?
That is correct.
If I had a Burt skydiving company, I couldn't come over and drop my skydivers out of it. It's only for this particular company.
That is correct. That's what would be authorized at this point. If anybody else was interested, they would have to approach the airports and go through the same process.
The second thing is, I am curious where the site that they think they might put it, and I know it's all up in the air, but we have two major roads, Victoria and Ventura Road, highly trafficked. Having done skydive and gone to places where they do, oftentimes you watch the people on the street stop paying attention to where they're driving and they're looking at a guy falling out of the sky. So I'd like you to be concerned of that when you ask these questions, when you make these presentations.
Absolutely. I mean, we're taking everything into consideration. Ultimately, our objective is to be, to continue to be a safe running airport, and even in consideration of what, off the airport as well. So we'll look at absolutely every angle that we can on this.
And I can say that for somebody that's never done it, it's worth trying at least once. And I agree with Kelly Long. You don't always land where you think you're going to land.
Right. And unfortunately, iSkydive has multiple locations nationwide. They're extremely experienced. And so again, we can't control whatever they do, but at least that gives us a little bit more comfort with an expertise company wanting to request this operation.
Yeah. Follow up. My initial question about, is it a static line or is it free fall or is it, buddy jump? Will there be a maximum height that this operation works?
They're looking to jump out about 8,000 feet.
Thank you.
No, I think above that is kind of another airspace.
Intel Center airspace at that point. Since I was there today and I have done a bunch of homework on this since it started. I'm neutral on this one way or another. I appreciate the grant assurances and the aeronautical use. And I also appreciate the fact that it has to be safe. I will make the comment that is tandem jumps. Those instructors have over 500 jumps. That once, as far as the landing zone goes, the landing zone in Somis actually is quite small. It's a pretty small pea gravel area in the backyard of the church. But as far as the aeronautical use and ATC coordination, it's pretty heavily regulated, both by regulation and by ATC FAA orders. There is a study that I think would be good if we could get our hands on it and send it to the supervisors, which was a study that the FAA did on how they construct their size of the drop zones and coordination. So
Yeah, absolutely. We'll gather that information.
And just to your comment, Supervisor Long, this company does have existing jump areas around the country. Brownfield, oops, I guess it's not working, including Brownfield down in San Diego. So I agree.
Thank you. Councilmember Perrello?
Is there an expansion? They want to have the site in Camarillo and in Oxnard, or are they leaving Camarillo for certain?
That's up to them. They haven't really determined, what they want to do. They may, if everything works out fine at Oxnard, they may leave that Camarillo one, but there might be a joint one as well. We're not quite sure at this time. Again, we're just kind of going through this as a trial period, and we'll, see what the conclusions are.
Thank you. With this trial period, you're talking about, we'll be seeing some of this activity already happening. Is that what you mean by a trial period, or is it just evaluating the safety and possibility of the landing zone being on site?
Yeah, so the trial, we're looking late November, sometime in December to start the trials. They're gonna start jumping out of the sky and they'll have an initial landing zone and see how that works out. And that's kind of when the evaluation is gonna really occur. It's gonna occur from, it's gonna happen from their traffic control tower, primarily in coordination with us. We're gonna gather a lot of information, see what's working, what's not working. We may try another landing zone at the airport that might work out a little bit better. Again, we don't know what that's gonna look like. But, you know, during that trial period, we're just gonna try to learn as much as we can.
Thank you. And with that, during that trial, because it is a trial period, are they going to only be using experienced jumpers, or will that also include public participants who are paying to be a part of it?
Yeah, they're running an operation, a business, so they will have, and I don't know initially, I don't know, maybe their first couple of jumps, they might do themselves
Okay.
just to test it out. I would think they would do something like that. Again, they've done this in several locations across the country. They know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that we're gonna be like, okay, do whatever you want to do. We trust you. We want to know all the information. So that will be a question that we ask as well. But, you know, I mean, eventually, I don't know how many tests it's going to take for them to, you know, have somebody paying, you know, somebody from the public from jumping with them.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah, let me just clarify on that. We will control the test. So yeah, the initial test, we're not having paying customers, and this first time we're jumping on this location, it will be Luther, the owner, and he's done this multiple times. He knows that it's going to take a process to convince us and all of us that it's safe. So we would start with individual experienced jumpers, and Casey mentioned the minimum to do tandem is 500 jumps. He says his local jumpers that are doing this have more than 10,000 jumps. They're the ones doing the jumps in this area specifically. So that's who will start the test. Here's our designated areas, and we'll probably do local individual jumps first to confirm it so that we're all comfortable in that process.
thank you. And with that, I think Councilmember Perrello mentioned, right? I mean, to see this activity in an area that may cause some, bring some attention. So I imagine that there's a plan to communicate with the public this expected trial period. And in case someone sees someone flying out, it's not going to cause a number of calls into the airport or even 911. So
Yes, absolutely. We're pretty good at communication
Yes.
with Jeanette, and we will definitely notify the community what's going on.
all right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, Chair Lopez, we have no public comment on this matter. And also, if we could just send a friendly reminder to everyone, just to please make sure you speak into the mic. We're getting some feedback that some of the microphones are not being heard loudly.
Thank you for that reminder. So we will move on to letter D. This is the approval and authorization for a contract, and I see Aaron walking up.
Good evening, Chair Lopez, authority members, Aaron Powers, Projects Administrator for the Department of Airports. Back in September of 2023, the Board of Supervisors authorized the department to enter into a contract with Security Paving Company for the reconstruction of taxiway Foxtrot, now renamed Alpha, in the approximate amount of $17.3 million. The project scope included work items for the removal and disposal of excavated soil. And the airport currently has stockpiled excavated soil from a prior taxiway construction project that we wish to add to this project to facilitate its proper disposal. Some of the benefits of using the current contract include lower overall costs. That's a little hard sometimes to believe with $1 million request here. But we believe the utilization of the current contract to dispose of the stockpiled soil will result in those overall lower costs by eliminating the additional costs associated with procedures to design, advertise, and bid the work separately. We have the additional benefit that we're going to be able to move more quickly to remove the stockpiles and schedule the work. A few things that you might want to know about this change order is the cost at $1 million, a not to exceed amount of $1 million represents a 6% increase to the original contract price. The change order is not grant eligible. We will be paying for this out of pocket. We have the appropriations, but we will be watching. The reason why we're disposing of this, or we stockpiled the material in the first place, and why we'll be looking in the future is because of our firefighting foam. We were required by the FAA to use a particular foam, and it contains a chemical named, I'm sorry, I went off my notes and now I'll just keep going. So the stockpile material to be removed was tested in compliance with an agreement with the State Water Board, with particular attention paid to PFAS, a chemical found in firefighting foam mandated by the FAA. The disposal plans have also been coordinated with the State Water Board. And essentially what we found is we have some non-PFAS impacted stockpiles, and that soil is going to be going to our Chiquita Canyon or our Simi Valley landfill. And then we have some stockpiled material that has been PFAS impacted, and it will be going to the Button Willow landfill, which is up in Kern County. As soon as we are able to take this item before the Board of Supervisors for approval and receive that approval, we're hoping, we will be working to schedule a date and share that information with the public, along with and that information we'll share through an e-blast with information on timing and where we're sending material. Some more details to come. And if members of the public have any questions, they'll be able to reach out to us to get additional information. Staff is requesting your authority recommend the board approve change order number 4, in part because it exceeds the director's authority to sign without board approval. And with that, I'd open it up to any questions.
Do you want to talk about the diagram on the?
Sure. So I apologize. We currently have stockpiled the material from the prior taxiway reconstruction project on the 11-acre parcel over by Ventura Boulevard. And that soil has been characterized. And so what you see is the plan as it is laid out for disposal.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Councilmember Turan?
Thank you for the update on this. Much appreciated. I know that this area just geographically does fall within the district that I represent. And so every time this comes up, I do appreciate the information and what we're able to get out there and share with the public. A couple quick questions on this. Looking at the staff report and the agenda attachments. Is there a recommendation that airport staff would have for folks who want to dig a little bit more into this, if they would like to see the PFAS report or the measurements? How can they access those? Is there a point of contact we'd have for them?
Sure, they can reach out and we would put this through the public records request, and we would be able to fulfill this pretty easily.
Okay. And I want to note and thank the Department of Airports for their transparency in that. I know we have members of the public who have taken great interest in this, understandably. And, even in the report itself and one of the attachments, it does say that the report by Limnotech is available for reference if requested. And so much appreciated. Next question I have is, do we have, if this were to go through for approval, ultimately a timeline in mind for when folks might see the dirt starting to be moved out?
So once the contracts are in place in December, we would be moving as quickly as we can to remove and schedule that removal. We hope by January, February timeframe.
Okay. And I know it goes without saying, but I just want to ask, just so it's on the record, do we know the hours of operations we'd be looking at for when the dirt will be getting taken out?
Daytime.
Daytime? Okay.
Yeah, we don't want anyone to think that, we do a lot of nighttime work as part of our normal construction operations due to construction safety. But we want to make sure that, there is no airfield safety component. And we want to make sure that it doesn't seem like we're sneaking away in the night soil. It's just suddenly disappeared.
Yes, thank you. And my last question, I know this has been stated in the past as well, but just so we can have it stated here. Is there any level of risk or danger to the public with the stockpiles there? I know they're covered with tarps and everything, but does PFAS affect folks if the wind blows the dust into the air or anything like that? Are there any concerns that folks need to have about that?
So what I would answer to that is that we've followed all the protocols set by the water board. And I think as long as we are able to meet that, then we're as good as we can get.
All right. And I guess one last question too. I know this is all on the agenda for this evening's meeting. Any follow-up items that come out if there were some communication for the public? I know that the Fremont South neighborhood, as well as the Wilson neighborhood, which is adjacent, and the Sierra neighborhoods, they all have taken interest in this. And so if there was some public communication, I'm sure myself and probably Councilmember Pearl will be happy to share those out as well.
That would be wonderful. I know that we plan ahead of once we have that date, we'll be publicizing and sharing that information, sharing where, what our plan is, where it's going, the time frame, and anything that amplifies that message is appreciated.
Great. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Pearl.
I will, Councilman Turan's questions. There's a lot of people with strong interest. I appreciate the upfront of the way this is presented. The only thing that I would add, I serve on the Ventura Regional Sanitation District for Tolan Landfill. And there is discussions that with the pressure because of Chiquita and the state and the county, there's a lot of pressure to shut it down. I don't think it's going to happen, but the backup plan is we would go to see me.
That is the backup plan. It costs a little bit more. So if we are able to schedule the disposal prior to any shutdown, then we would go to Chiquita landfill. If Chiquita closes, then see me. We have coordinated, we have a environmental broker that coordinated the test results with all three landfills. So they all have agreed to accept it and they know what they're getting.
And again, I want to thank Councilman Turan for asking about the documentation about whatever was in the soil. We have a tremendous amount of people in Oxnard, close to 250. And sometimes one person gets a story cockeyed and it just takes off. That's all. The data is important. Facts and evidence matter. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from board members or authority members? Or do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment on this item.
All right. Well, with that, we do have the recommended action. So do we have a motion?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or any abstentions? All right. So I'll turn it over to Director Fridas and then back to Supervisor Long.
Director's report.
All right, I will keep this short. I know that Jeanette did a fabulous job of describing what happened with the emergency response, first responders. But I want to point out candidly, our elected officials, many that are sitting up here, City of Camarillo, and the Board of Supervisors for the county, fabulous, all part working together. I've been doing this for a long time. It worked at all levels and continues, and there's a long haul to go. We all know that, but you all should be thanked and appreciated as well. But I'm a very visual person, so I wanted to show all the great things that Jeanette talked about in what this airfield looked like during those 5 days of shutdown with up to 20 helicopters. Again, the first 2 days were 24/7 operations in close proximity, putting wet stuff on the red stuff. But all the support vehicles, you see support vehicles, so not only the helicopters, but their fueling, their retardant vehicles, their sleeping quarters, their food quarters, all of that stuff packed all over this facility for 5 days. So I wanted to share that, the visual side of all of those. It was an operation for sure. All right, then I'll move to my next item. Just want to share with everybody, most of you received the email blast that Jeanette put out October 29th. We've been talking the last couple of years about 2 development sites at Oxnard Airport. One of those 5-acre parcel went through a normal process. Before you do development, you do environmental analysis. So in a phase 1 or a phase 2, you may find things. So on the 5 acres, that developer found elevated levels of old pesticides. So we've shut down discussions with them on that. We're now in the process of hiring environmental consultant. Both the environmental consultant that found the analysis and our own county health, environmental health, determined there's no immediate concern to the public, but we want to shut everything down, be extra cautious, hiring a consultant, do the analysis, and then come up with a remediation plan for us. So just want to put that out and share that with everybody. Again, we did that, share that with the community, with our city of Oxnard elected officials back in October as well. Then I'll move to our, yes, sir.
I understand shut it down, but does that mean that there is no more option with the individual on the property, or if it is cleaned up, he has an option that runs?
Yeah, we will freeze discussions on development on that parcel, and then once that is remediated, whatever that is determined, and that's wrapped up, and we're comfortable with that, then we go back to that individual.
Thank you.
Yes. Then moving to, as you know, we're wrapping up the 2 noise part 150 noise studies, Camarillo and Oxnard. October 7th and 8th, we had our last 2 wrapping up all the chapters of the 2 noise studies. Camarillo had about 90 people at their public meeting on the 7th. Oxnard had about 25 at their public meeting on the 8th of October. In summary, the biggest concerns for Oxnard residents were land uses around the airport. And as you know, for Camarillo, it's the jets on arrival, mostly over Old Town. So those were kind of the highlights of those 2 communities. I will say Camarillo community members, first time in the 2-year process that we received applause because we had brought in the consultant that was going to look at the approach analysis and options that we have. And he did a fabulous job of outlining the options we have to evaluate. So that was a good success for the Camarillo side. And then I'll move to the annual event that the sheriff's department has done a few years here, Coppers and Choppers. They did on September 21st, Camarillo Airport. You know, they had sheriff's deputies, canine units, mounted patrol, search and rescue, Marine. You know all the good things they do already, but they had a good public event in September. An interesting event. I even got a call from the mayor of Camarillo. There was a formation of T6, old aircraft flying low over Camarillo. What happened to be at the request of the Camarillo High School, who were honoring Military Appreciation Night. And so for their varsity football game, they had this formation flying, and we got calls from community members. Even the mayor called. We clarified what it was, and at that point, everybody seemed to be okay with what was going on. But that was an interesting call. And then next, second to last item, 1 of 2 flying B-29s visited Camarillo Airport last month, I believe it was. Again, 1 of 2 B-29s flying in the world. Lots of tours and some operations from the facility. And the last item to bring up to date is you've heard us talk about the emergency repairs we need to do here for the runway and taxiway alpha at Camarillo Airport. You see the the condition of the pavements that we were dealing with, and then the after we finished that up. And I think it was about a week and a half worth of work, and that's to buy our time to do the ultimate reconstruction, which is probably in the next 7 or so years that we undertake that. So that's my quick updates. Unless somebody has any questions.
Any questions for the director? Go ahead.
Do you have any expectations with the new administration coming in, how they could possibly touch funds for the airports?
Wow. I do not at this time. What I can say is that the federal government last year did a 5-year AIP funding. Still got to approve the funds each year, but there is a 5-year plan that was previously planned to be funded, which was at a very high level for airport and airport improvements specifically. So if they continue with that, it would be as it has been in the past, it would be good for airports and infrastructure projects.
And the reason I ask is, as various people are mentioned and nominated, they're yet to be approved. It's extremely eye-opening. Thank you.
Mr. Freitas, just want to thank you with the notification about the information that was discovered on that the soil, and just appreciate the department getting ahead of it, notifying our local officials and getting the information out. I think it's just demonstrates a good faith effort in making sure that we're being transparent and open with our community about what we're seeing. So just thank you and the staff for staying on top of it.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, the mindset is we want this to be treated as we would want to be treated if we were on the other side. What's going on, what's happening, and that we have a plan to address it, investigate it, mitigate it, all of those things. Even if we got to ship it all the way to Buttonwillow.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the reports that were been submitted to us? Yes.
On the monthly activity reports for the Oxnard Airport, landside citations issued 14 for August and 26 for September. And what are some of the landside citations?
Most of those citations have to do with the public parking lot we have tied to the terminal building. Folks just parking there long term, or parking next to the air traffic tower because they don't want to go into the parking lot. They illegally park in the parking lot that's used for all the employees, rental car company, FAA, to support those facilities. So it's one of those 2 locations typically.
Thank you, because I noticed that Camarillo has 0 both times, and I'm impressed. Work on Oxnard.
A lot more places to park there at Camarillo that you can hide and open space. Yes.
All right, if there's no more questions. Yeah, okay.
Just as a quick follow-up, to be fair, it's not a very long walk to get anywhere at the Oxnard Airport facility, but it's all right. People choose to park where they're going to park. So.
All righty. So reports are finalized. We have a correspondence that everyone has seen. We've got commissioner comments. Any additional commissioner comments? Yes, go ahead.
I got an invitation to attend the Santa Paula Airport for recognition of 2 individuals that pulled a person. They actually didn't pull him out, but helped a person that crashed an airplane and was on fire. And it was a tremendous event. There were a lot of people there. The 2 individuals were acknowledged. It's a pretty gruesome story. But even the fire and the police department commented that very rarely does a member of the public do what these 2 individuals did. And extremely impressive. They were awarded some thank yous, and makes me have a lot more respect for people that get in airplanes, and you think if it comes down and something goes wrong, you can get out. The guy got out, but he was totally covered in flame except for his face. and he's still alive.
Thank you. Yes, Lord. Okay. I did want to make sure people know that we have a new air station. The U.S. Coast Guard opened up their air station Ventura. We had a ribbon cutting yesterday. It's at the Point of View location. So if you do see more fixed wing helicopter from the Coast Guard utilizing the Camarillo or Oxnard airport for one reason or another, I wanted to make sure people knew that that station is now moved from Los Angeles to Ventura County. They will cover Orange County all the way up to the San Luis Obispo. So this is a fabulous move for our community and for them. For me, I think it's great because we're putting people in better. I think so. That's fabulous. So thank you for Supervisor Lopez.
There we go. I actually have two comments. The first is on the career day, it was very successful. And it's interesting because when I presented it at the east end of the county in Fillmore, all of a sudden they said, gee, we've got to figure out the busing because we need to get the kids there next year. The other little story on the Coast Guard is I have a flight student that is at the Coast Guard Academy right now. He is from Thousand Oaks, and it sounds like he may be able to come home to actually work. So.
Bring them home. Sounds great. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting. So thank you very much. Oh, you had another question? Please go ahead. I know, but I wanted to make
Oh,
sure.
thank you. Just real quickly, I do want to thank Ms. Haregi and staff for all the communication that goes out regarding airport happenings and important updates for the public. I did want to point out the Osprey military aircraft that happened just a couple days ago. And that information came out, and then I put out some info to the public just in time for the very loud noise that the aircraft makes to be hovering over the city of Oxnard and portions of Camarillo again and again. And so people were appreciative, very appreciative to have the info, understand what it was and the exercise that was taking place. Was that the federal government that did that? Or yeah, so I see Mr. Freitas nodding his head yes. I think they probably could have chosen another night besides election night for military exercises, but that's okay. That's their decision. But I just wanted to give formal thanks to staff for all the information they put out there. So thank you.
Any other comments? And with that, we are adjourned to December 11th. Thank you very much, everyone.